This story is quite detailed, so I'll dive straight in with only the important parts. I'm 24 years old now, just finished my university degree in graphic design. Ever since I was a little kid, around 4 or 5 years old, my family has lived in a spacious 2-story house in a peaceful, upscale suburban neighborhood. Think wide streets lined with tall trees, families walking dogs in the evenings, and kids riding bikes on the weekends. That kind of classic, quiet community. The layout of our house matters for this. My bedroom is on the upper floor with a big window overlooking the front street. My father's study, where he spends many late nights, also faces the street from the same floor. That's really all you need to picture. The reason I'm sharing this is because of what happened just last week. I'm now completely convinced that something dark and intentional has been targeting my family for years, for reasons I still can't understand. If I'm connecting everything correctly, and I'm almost sure I am, this has been going on for over a decade. The first incident I remember happened when I was still in middle school, maybe 11 or 12 years old. It was a weekend morning. I was heading downstairs for breakfast when I overheard my parents talking in the kitchen. I didn't catch every word, but my father's voice sounded worried. He kept saying something had happened again. When I asked what was going on, they brushed it off and didn't explain for a long time. I only learned the full details later from my older sister. My father works as a corporate consultant, often handling sensitive contracts for big companies. That night, he had been working late in his study until around 1:30 in the morning. Around midnight, while focused on his laptop, he noticed a dark blue SUV driving extremely slowly down our street, barely moving, like it was almost drifting. He thought it was odd, but didn't pay much attention at first. Then, the same vehicle came back from the opposite direction, still crawling at that same snail's pace. Finally, it parked directly across from our house. Dad watched it for several minutes. No one got out, the engine stayed running, but the car just sat there in the shadows. He went back to his work, checking the window every so often. Hours passed with no movement. Eventually, he dozed off at his desk. When he woke just before dawn, the SUV was still in the exact same spot. It finally drove away as the sun started to rise. He was so unsettled that he couldn't sleep afterward. This wasn't the first time something like this had happened, he later admitted. Similar slow-moving vehicles had appeared on our street late at night before, but this one felt different, more deliberate. For years, we tried to dismiss it. Maybe it was just someone resting after a long drive or kids messing around. At worst, perhaps someone scouting nice neighborhoods for future burglaries. Life went on, and we didn't dwell on it. Fast forward several years. I was 17, in my final year of high school. I remember the next event clearly because it happened directly to me. I was up late in my room, working on a music project with my headphones on. My desk sits right in front of the window facing the street. Suddenly, a strange flicker of light caught my eye from outside. I looked out and froze. There were at least 4 cars moving together down the street at that same painfully slow speed. People inside were shining bright flashlights towards houses, sweeping the beams across windows and yards. I watched as the lead car lit up our neighbor's property, then turned toward ours. When the beam headed straight from my window, I ducked below the sill just in time. The light passed over my ceiling for a few seconds before vanishing. By the time I peeked out again, the convoy had turned the corner and disappeared into the night. I barely slept. The next morning, I told my parents everything. We all agreed it looked like a group casing homes, probably looking for easy targets when owners were away. Dad immediately installed a high-quality doorbell camera and added motion sensor lights with security cameras in the backyard. We even spoke to a few neighbors, but no one else reported seeing anything similar. A couple of years passed without major incidents. Then, while doing some garden work, one of the workers my father hired found something disturbing. Tucked deep inside a thick bush near our back fence was a tiny, hidden camera. It was smaller than a matchbox, battery-powered and completely dead. No memory card, no SIM, but it was clearly designed to stream footage wirelessly to someone nearby when it was active. We had no idea how long it had been there or who placed it. Dad reviewed all our security footage but found nothing conclusive. He was furious. We reported it to the local police, but without clear evidence of who did it, there wasn't much they could do. Our existing security system was already strong, so we upgraded a few things and tried to move forward. Life settled down again. We focused on work, studies, and family. Then our next-door neighbors moved out suddenly. Their house sold quickly and was occupied within weeks by a new couple, young, no kids, which seemed a bit strange for such a large, family-sized home in our area. I noticed them almost immediately. Several times, early in the morning or late at night, I'd see one of them standing at their upstairs window, staring directly into our backyard. Not casually glancing, just standing there, watching. At first, I thought maybe they had a home office like my dad, but they were always standing, never sitting. It felt off. One evening, while walking our dog, I glanced through their large front window and saw them sitting at the dining table with a third person, a tall, bald man with a very muscular build and unusually thick eyebrows. They were deep in conversation. As soon as I passed, the woman quickly closed the curtains without even looking outside. It was as if she sensed I was there. I couldn't shake the image of that bald man. His face stuck with me. A few weeks after that strange evening with the bald man, things escalated again. It was a Thursday night in mid-autumn. I had just returned home from a late college project meeting. The whole house was quiet, except for the faint sound of my father typing in his study. I went upstairs to my room, changed into comfortable clothes, and sat by the window to scroll through my phone for a few minutes before bed. That's when I noticed it again. The same dark blue SUV from years earlier, or at least one that looked identical. It parked across the street under the broken streetlight, exactly where my father had described it before. This time, the engine was off, no lights, just a dark shape sitting there like it belonged to the night. I watched it for almost 40 minutes. Nothing moved, no one got out. Around 1:15 a.m., I finally went to tell my dad. When we both looked out from his study window, the SUV was gone, vanished without a sound. My father didn't say much, but I could see the worry lines deepening on his forehead. He had been receiving some unusual anonymous emails at work lately, vague threats about leaked documents and watching your every move. He had dismissed them as spam, but now he wasn't so sure. The very next weekend, my older sister came home from her job in the city for a family visit. She's 28 and works as a financial analyst. On Saturday night, while we were all having dinner, the power suddenly went out in the entire neighborhood. It wasn't storming, no explanation from the power company. We lit candles and continued talking, but the atmosphere felt heavy. Around 11 p.m., the power came back. That's when my sister told us what she had seen from the guest room window. A man wearing dark clothes and a baseball cap had been standing behind our garage for nearly 20 minutes, partially hidden by the shadows. He was holding something small in his hands, possibly a phone or a recording device, pointed toward our house. When the lights returned, he quickly slipped away between the houses. We checked the security cameras immediately. The footage showed the man clearly, but his face was never visible. He moved with purpose, like someone who knew exactly where the blind spots were. My father called the police again. They took a report, reviewed the footage, and promised to increase patrols in our area, but we all knew that meant very little in reality. 2 days later, I found something that truly scared me. While cleaning the backyard after a storm, I discovered a small black device attached to the underside of our garden bench. It was a GPS tracker, the kind used for vehicles, but this one had been modified with a strong magnet. It was still active. Someone had been tracking movements in our own backyard. That same afternoon, the new neighbor woman came over with a plate of cookies, acting overly friendly. She introduced herself as Elena and said her husband worked in private security. She asked a lot of questions: what my father did for a living, where my sister worked, even what university I attended. Her smile never reached her eyes. When she left, I noticed her glancing toward the upstairs windows again. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the bald man I had seen through their window. Something about his face felt familiar, but I couldn't place it. I decided to do some quiet investigating of my own. Using a fake social media account, I searched for information about the couple. Their house had been bought under a company name, some vague consulting firm I had never heard of. No real personal photos anywhere. It was all too clean. The next incident happened while I was away. My parents went to visit relatives for 3 days, leaving the house empty except for our dog. When they returned, they found the back door unlocked. Nothing was stolen, but several drawers in my father's study had been opened and carefully closed again. His work laptop was moved slightly from its usual position. The security cameras had been looping old footage for almost 4 hours. Someone had hacked or jammed the system. My father finally admitted the truth to us that evening. For the past 8 years, he had been working on highly confidential projects involving corporate investigations. He had helped expose several large-scale fraud cases. One of those cases involved a powerful international group that didn't like losing money. He had received warnings before, but he never imagined they would come this close to our family. I asked him why he never told us earlier. He said he didn't want to scare us. But now it was clear. We were being watched, studied, and slowly pressured. The final piece of part 2 came on a cold November evening. I was walking our dog around the block at dusk. As I passed the neighbor's house, their front door opened. The bald man stepped out, wearing a black jacket. He looked straight at me and smiled, a slow, knowing smile that sent ice down my spine. He didn't say a word, just stared until I turned the corner. When I got home, I locked every door and window. For the first time, I truly understood that this wasn't random. This was personal, and it had been happening for years. I started sleeping with my lights on and my phone recording audio all night, but even that wouldn't prepare me for what happened 2 weeks later. The trip that changed everything. The trip my parents mentioned was actually my idea. I thought getting away from the neighborhood for a few days might clear our heads and give us some breathing room. We decided to drive 4 hours north to a quiet lakeside cabin that belonged to my uncle. It was deep in the woods, surrounded by tall pine trees and a peaceful lake, the kind of place where nothing bad ever seemed to happen, or so we thought. We left early on a Friday morning. My father drove, my mother sat in the passenger seat, and I was in the back with our dog. My sister couldn't join us because of work. The first few hours on the highway felt normal. We played music, talked about old family memories, and tried to forget the tension that had been building at home. But as soon as we turned onto the smaller mountain road leading to the cabin, I noticed a silver sedan staying exactly 3 cars behind us. It had been there since we left the city. At first, I said nothing. Maybe it was just coincidence. But when we stopped at a small gas station for coffee, the silver sedan pulled in too. The driver, a man wearing sunglasses and a hoodie, didn't get out. He just sat there, engine running. When we left, he followed again at the same careful distance. "Dad, I think we're being followed," I finally said. My father checked the rearview mirror and his face tightened. He didn't speed up or do anything dramatic. Instead, he took a sudden turn onto a narrow side road. The silver sedan followed. After 10 minutes of winding roads, my father pulled into a small roadside restaurant parking lot. The sedan drove past slowly, but I managed to catch the license plate number. I wrote it down immediately. We stayed at the restaurant longer than necessary. When we finally continued to the cabin, the sedan was gone. We arrived just before sunset. The cabin was beautiful. Wooden walls, a large porch overlooking the lake, and total silence except for the sound of birds and water. For the first evening, everything felt peaceful. We cooked dinner, played cards, and even laughed again like old times. But that night, around 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound of footsteps on the wooden porch. Our dog was growling softly beside my bed. I crept to the window and looked out. A figure stood near the edge of the porch, shining a small red flashlight towards the windows. When the beam hit my room, I dropped to the floor. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I stayed down for almost 15 minutes. When I looked again, the figure was gone. The next morning, I told my parents. We searched the area around the cabin and found fresh footprints in the soft mud leading from the lake up to the porch and then back into the trees. The prints were large, definitely a man's shoe size. My father called the local sheriff, but since nothing was stolen and we had no clear proof, they only promised to send a patrol car later that night. That afternoon, while my mother was resting, my father and I took the dog for a walk along the lake trail. That's when we noticed the same silver sedan parked at the far end of the public boat ramp. The driver was standing outside now, talking on the phone. As soon as he saw us, he got back in the car and drove away quickly. My father took a photo of the car, but the license plate had been covered with mud. The real fear came that same evening. We were sitting on the porch watching the sunset when my mother suddenly gasped. She pointed toward the tree line across the lake. Through binoculars, we could see a man with binoculars of his own, watching us. He was too far away to identify clearly, but the shape of his head and shoulders looked exactly like the bald man from our neighbor's house. We went inside, locked every door and window, and turned off most of the lights. My father loaded his old hunting rifle, something he hadn't touched in years. We spent the night taking turns watching from different windows. Around 4 a.m., I saw flashlight beams moving through the trees near the cabin. They swept back and forth for nearly an hour before disappearing. The next day, we cut our trip short. On the drive back home, we took a completely different route and changed cars with my uncle to be safe. But the feeling of being watched never left us. When we arrived home that evening, something was waiting for us. A small envelope had been slipped under our front door. Inside was a single photograph, taken from across the street at night. It showed all three of us sitting in our living room 2 weeks ago. On the back of the photo, someone had written in black ink, "We see everything. Stop digging." My hands were shaking as I held that picture. My father immediately checked the security cameras, but of course the footage from the previous night was missing again. That was the moment we realized this wasn't just harassment anymore. This was a calculated psychological attack. Someone wanted us scared. Someone wanted my father to stop whatever investigation he was still involved in. I spent the rest of that night searching online using the license plate number I had written down. What I found chilled me to the bone. The car was registered to a private security company that had ties to one of the corporations my father had helped investigate years ago. The company had been mentioned in several leaked documents. I didn't sleep at all. The next morning, I showed my father what I had discovered. His face went pale. He finally admitted that the threats had started again more seriously 3 months ago. He had been thinking about going to the authorities with new evidence, but now he was terrified for our safety. That evening, as I sat in my room staring at the street, I saw the dark blue SUV return. This time, it didn't park. It drove past slowly, and for a brief second, the passenger window rolled down. The bald man looked directly up at my window and held up his hand, 3 fingers raised, like a warning. That 3-finger gesture from the bald man haunted me for days. It felt like a countdown. 3 days, 3 warnings, or something worse. I barely left my room. Every creak in the house made me jump. My father had stopped going to his office and started working from home with extra precautions. We installed new cameras with better encryption, hired a private security consultant for advice, and even got a large guard dog from a friend. But deep down, we all knew these measures might not be enough. 3 nights after the gesture, the worst night began. It was raining heavily around 1 a.m. I was lying awake in bed when I heard a faint scratching sound near my window. At first, I thought it was a tree branch from the storm. Then it came again, deliberate, like metal on glass. I slowly got up and peeked through the curtains. A dark figure was standing on the narrow ledge outside my second-floor window, trying to pry it open with a thin tool. I screamed and stumbled backward. The figure looked up, his face partially illuminated by my nightlight. It was the bald man. His eyes were cold and focused. Before I could react, he lost his balance in the rain and fell backward onto the bushes below. I heard him curse loudly as he hit the ground. My father burst into my room with the rifle. We both rushed to the window, but the man had already disappeared into the darkness. We called the police immediately. This time they responded quickly because we had clear footage from the new cameras. The bald man's face was visible for several seconds. The officers took the video, dusted for fingerprints on the window frame, and promised a serious investigation. They even stationed a patrol car in front of our house for the rest of the night. The next morning brought more bad news. My sister called from her apartment in the city. Someone had broken into her place while she was at work. Nothing valuable was taken, but all her photo albums were opened and scattered on the floor. A note was left on her kitchen table. "Tell your father to stay quiet." She was terrified and came home immediately. That afternoon, my father finally decided to go to the federal authorities with everything he had. He gathered all the documents, emails, photos, and videos from the past years. While he was preparing, I stayed in the living room watching the street. Around 4 p.m., Elena from next door came over again. This time, she didn't bring cookies. She looked nervous and asked if everything was okay. When I told her about the break-in attempt, her face went pale. She whispered, "You should leave this neighborhood. It's not safe here anymore." Then she quickly walked back to her house. Her words confirmed what we already suspected. She and her husband were involved somehow. My father contacted an old colleague who worked in corporate intelligence. The colleague ran the license plate and the bald man's photo through private databases. What he discovered was shocking. The bald man's real name was Victor Kane. He was a former Special Forces operative, now working as a freelancer for high-paying clients who wanted problems to disappear quietly. The security company linked to the silver sedan had been hired by the same corporate group my father had exposed. That evening, as we were eating dinner together as a family for the first time in weeks, the power went out again. This time, it wasn't the whole neighborhood, only our house. The backup generator kicked in after a minute, but the security cameras were offline. My father told us to stay together in the living room. He and I checked every room with flashlights. In his study, we found the window slightly open. Papers were scattered everywhere. Someone had been inside the house while we were eating. On the desk was a new note, "Last warning, the next visit won't be so gentle." We spent that night huddled together with all the lights on and the dogs at our feet. No one slept. Around 3 a.m., we heard multiple cars slowly driving up and down the street. Flashlight beams swept across our windows again, just like years ago. This time, they stayed longer, almost taunting us. The next day, my father had a meeting scheduled with federal investigators. He left early in the morning with 2 private security guards we had hired. My mother, sister, and I stayed home with the dogs and locked doors. Around noon, I received an unknown call. When I answered, a distorted voice said slowly, "If he talks, none of you will make it to Christmas." I hung up and immediately called my father. He said he was safe and the meeting was going well, but when he returned home that evening, his face was grim. The investigators had taken his evidence seriously, but they warned him that these people were extremely dangerous and well-connected. Protection would take time to arrange. That night was the breaking point. I woke up to the sound of glass breaking downstairs. Someone had thrown a rock through the kitchen window. Attached to the rock was another photo, this one taken at the lakeside cabin showing me and my parents on the porch. On the back, it said, "We were closer than you think." I stood there in the dark kitchen holding that photo, realizing how long and how deeply we had been monitored. Every vacation, every late night, every conversation, they had been watching. The fear turned into something else inside me, anger. We couldn't keep living like this. My father came down and saw me standing there. For the first time, he looked truly broken. He whispered, "I'm so sorry I brought this into our lives." But apologizing wasn't enough anymore. We had to end it. The next morning, we made a plan. We would leave the house for a safe location arranged by the authorities while the investigation continued. But as we started packing, I looked out the front window one last time. The dark blue USV was parked across the street again. This time, all 4 doors opened at once. All 4 doors of the dark blue SUV opened at the same time. Victor Kane stepped out first, followed by 2 other men I had never seen before. They all wore dark jackets and moved with military precision. The 4th person remained inside the vehicle, watching. My heart nearly stopped. I shouted for my family, and within seconds we were all in the living room, doors locked, dogs barking wildly. My father grabbed his rifle while my mother called the police. The 3 men crossed the street and stood on our front lawn. Victor looked straight at the living room window where I was standing and raised his hand again, this time showing only one finger. One final warning. The police arrived faster than I expected. 2 patrol cars screeched into our street, lights flashing. The men didn't run. They simply walked back to the SUV, got in, and drove away slowly, as if they had all the time in the world. The officers took statements, reviewed the new camera footage, and finally seemed to understand the seriousness of our situation. They escorted us to a nearby hotel for the night, while federal investigators were contacted. The next 48 hours were a blur of safe houses, interviews, and fear. Federal investigators confirmed what my father had suspected. Victor Kane and his team had been hired by a powerful corporate syndicate that my father's investigation had nearly destroyed years ago. They had been watching our family for over a decade, using neighbors, trackers, hidden cameras, and psychological pressure to force my father to stay silent. The new neighbors, Elena and her husband, were part of the network, paid to monitor us from next door. On the 3rd day, while we were in a secure location outside the city, we received news that changed everything. Victor Kane had been arrested during a raid on a warehouse linked to the syndicate. Evidence from my father's documents, combined with the recent incidents, was enough for warrants. 2 other men from that night were also taken into custody. The dark blue SUV was found abandoned with fake plates. But the relief was short-lived. The masterminds behind the syndicate were still free, operating from overseas. Investigators warned us that the threat might never completely disappear. We were offered a place in a witness protection program. After long family discussions, we accepted. Within 2 weeks, our house was sold, our old lives were packed away, and we received new identities. We now live in a different state, in a smaller but safer community. My father works under a new name as a consultant for a government agency. My sister and I changed universities and careers slightly. We still look over our shoulders sometimes. Every unfamiliar car on our street makes us pause. Every late-night sound wakes us up. I still remember that final night in our old house. As the federal agents helped us leave, I took one last look at the empty street. For a moment, I thought I saw a faint silhouette standing under the broken streetlight. But when I blinked, it was gone. Maybe it was just my imagination. Maybe not. The most disturbing part is realizing how patient they were. This wasn't a quick crime. It was a slow, calculated campaign that lasted more than 10 years, watching us grow up, studying our routines, waiting for the perfect moment to strike fear into our hearts. They didn't want to kill us immediately. They wanted us to live in terror, always wondering when they would come back. Even now, years later, I sometimes wake up at 2 a.m. and check the windows. Old habits die hard. My father told me recently that the main syndicate leader was finally arrested in another country, but he also admitted that there are always others waiting to take their place. If you're listening to this and you notice strange cars on your street or feel like someone is watching your house too often, don't ignore it. Document everything. Tell your family. Contact the authorities early. Because sometimes the scariest stories aren't about ghosts or monsters. They're about real people who are willing to spend years destroying your peace just to protect their secrets. I used to think our old suburban neighborhood was the safest place on earth. Now I know that evil doesn't always hide in the shadows. Sometimes it parks right across the street under a broken light and waits patiently for years. We survived, but we will never be the same again.